business. And there was none of the men of the house there within. And again, like last week, I said, just a little suspicious. Wonder how that happened. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called the men of the house and spake unto them, saying, see, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. And he came into me to lie with me. And I cried with a loud voice. I just want to say this here too. Young Ray, how quickly did it change? See, there's lots during this passage where it really kind of covers 11 years. We get a long period of time covered in here. And we don't get all the flirting, and we don't get a long period of time is covered. But this is pretty specific. He came in, he fled, and her immediate response. Now that's an important part. We need to see this response, because what this does is it gives us a picture. It shows for us the difference between what I'm going to say is worldly admiration or worldly love and what love is really supposed to be. And there's a huge danger here. Brother Wayne, I mean, you've known me a long time. Unfortunately, you probably listened to me more times than anybody else in here. So you know that I'm going to tell you love is the preeminent thing. I'm going to say that based off 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It is, they'll know we're Christians by, we have this long list of things we have to do, but it says they'll know we're Christians by our love. When Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? He gave a quick answer. And in case you didn't ask, but let me make sure you understand, the second is like unto the first. And it still has that same idea, that same thought. So when we don't take time to point out the differences, then what we allow is we allow the preeminent thing for Christians to be weakened. It becomes weakened for Gabby. It becomes weakened for Josh and for Eric because if we don't define the difference, the definition, it's the same word. And worldly love will fail, and it'll fail, and it'll fail, and it'll fail. Thank you. And so the challenge there is you gotta point out the difference. And I don't want us to miss this difference, because here is this woman willing to risk everything. But Rick, she's willing to risk everything because she's so allured by him. Or either that or there is no risk, which gets us later on here. You know, Egyptian society, especially among the rulers, was a very sexualized society. So either she's risking everything for this young 27, 28-year-old guy that she just can't do without. She's so attracted. It feels like you're talking to a 16-year-old teenager. I just love him. So overwhelmed and consumed with admiration for him. But instantly after rejection, as soon as he said no and fled, how quickly it turned to, I hate him. I will ruin him. Now it really sounds like 16-year-olds dating. Mom and Dad, you just don't understand. I love her. I love him. Junior year, I don't ever want to talk to him again in my life. He's terrible. It is, and I'm going to tell you this too, we miss an opportunity at that time if we don't show the difference between real love and what the world calls love. I mean, we should use those opportunities to make sure they understand the difference, because I'm going to tell you, here's the other danger. There is something inside of us, and I'm going to jump to 1 Corinthians 13, which I think we could read every week. We're going to read about 3 or 4 verses, unless, Eric, you can get up there quick enough, and then we'll jump back. But I truly believe this. Gabby, I believe this. Here's one of the dangers. Inside of us, we know love shouldn't quit. We know. That's what 1 Corinthians is going to tell us. It doesn't quit. It doesn't give up. I believe inside of every person, we know love shouldn't quit. And one of the real dangers of that 16-year-old girl dating at 16 years old is there's something inside of her that knows love shouldn't quit. So even though she's dating somebody that she knows she shouldn't be with, and he spends time revealing all of the challenges and problems, and there's something inside of her that says, no, I'm really loving as long as I don't quit. And that's how we end up with a bunch of 19, 20, 21-year-old marriages that probably never should happen. Because we're fighting for that picture of, I just want to be that person. Well, We do want to be that person, but love needs to be kept within its bounds. And that's a whole another area and another discussion when we don't have time because we want to stay through Genesis 39. But it is something we need to understand. Now, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And I'm just going to read a couple. Contrast between her picture right there. I love him, I love him, I love him. I hate him. Let me destroy him. And what she does is to destroy. Let me tell you, this is really ugly. She takes his job, she takes his life, she takes his freedom, she tries to shame him, she tries to destroy him amongst everyone around. Now that is a far contrast to verse 4, charity suffereth long. And it is important that we point out the word suffereth, because sometimes that's what it feels like when you're the lover. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. And we could spend a week looking at every one of these little phrases. It doth not behave itself unseemingly. It seeketh not her own. It's not easily provoked. It is hard to say, I'm loving you when I'm screaming and yelling at you as much as I can. It's not easily provoked. It thinketh no evil, immediately jumping to accusations and challenge and unbelief. It rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in truth. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. And she would qualify for none of those. So there is this great picture of a contrast between biblical love and worldly admiration, worldly picture. Her love is selfish, and immediately when she doesn't get what she needs or what she desires or what she wants, and here goes the other question, Sammy, what if she got what she wants? Would she be happy then? No, she would just want more and more and more until you get to the place that she can't get what she wants. You see, we're supposed to be fulfilled vertically. We can't get fulfilled. We can only give out here what we receive here. And so there's no way this works out any better than it did. And it does happen all the time at different levels, at different challenges, where we get to this place where I'm going to choose to befriend, I'm going to choose to join, it happens at work, it happens at churches, and I just, here. See, I should have said this before the preacher gets in. Now I'm going to get in trouble when he went afterwards. But people come into church, and they say, I just love this church. And they just I just love this church. It's the best church. It's the greatest place. It has the greatest people. Until the first time they don't get what they want or what they think should happen. And then Facebook becomes the servant in Potiphar's house. See, now, I told you, I see his face right now. Jeremy, you shouldn't have said that. And this church, which formerly they loved, gets blasted and ridiculed all over social media. That happens all the time. I love this job until somebody else gets the promotion. And then everybody standing around me gets to hear what's wrong with it and what's wrong with my boss. It happens in families. It happens in relationships. So when we start reading 1 Corinthians 13 and we start applying it to real life, it really does change things, and it makes us look different. And there's a great contrast between 1 Corinthians 14, biblical love, and the picture we see in Potiphar's wife, who immediately, when facing rejection, lashed out. And often the deepest venom of the human heart is directed towards those friends and family and churches and employers which one time we said we loved. And again, sounds like I'm talking about 16-year-old dating life. But sometimes we don't grow up. Now, her venom shows the great ugly injustice of sin, and the Bible does a good job of constantly showing us what sin really is so that our mind can't make it look prettier than it does and make it smell good. And when we look at what she did, it's very ugly. Chapter 39, verses 13 and 14, and it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand. Okay, Brother Ray, I got you. You got to understand. I've planned this whole thing out. I can't live without you. Nobody's here. Come and be with me. And so you can't get away. Come and be with me. Immediately he leaves, and she looks at the garment and says, I mean, it's that fast. Then she called unto the men of the house. There's nobody around. I can't discredit him, so let me bring in an audience to destroy him. Then she called unto the men of the house and spake unto them, saying, because she had to call them in, there was nobody there. See, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. And he came in to me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled, and got him out. Then she laid his garment by her until his Lord came home. Immediately, she begins to attack. And it is important we learn how she attacks, because I've been in church long enough to see this exact thing happen. See, here's the first thing she does. She builds her army. The very first thing she did, now, I don't know. I've never been in this situation. I don't know anyone who's been in this situation. Well, that's not true. But I would think, Brother Wayne, I would think, first thought is, this is not something you want to publicize to everybody. She would want to talk to her husband. But she doesn't wait for Potiphar. The very first thing she does is slander him and begin to attack him to everyone she can bring around. It's not even anybody who was around who would know. It's let me bring them around. Let me tear him down. She begins to slander him to others. She begins to build the army. It is not waiting for Potiphar. It is let me broadcast this to everybody so that I can sow discord, so that I can demean him. I'm going to create a climate of evil and abuse and victim and mistrust, and I'm going to color the water. And the next thing she does, this is interesting. Preacher, I've never paid attention to this before this time. She plays the race card. Brought a Hebrew in. Now, let me tell you, at this point, this was not a mighty nation. This is a small family. What does being a Hebrew have to do with anything? And by the way, this Hebrew has served you very well for over a decade. You have been blessed and blessed and blessed and blessed because of this Hebrew. This Hebrew has nothing to do with it. Why do you bring it in? Because the race card does what it does, and it instantly creates an us versus them. It instantly creates division. It divides. And then to bank on it, when you say, this Hebrew who comes in to laugh at us, you see, he thinks he's better than us. He's mocking us. He's making fun of us. There you have the race card from history. It instantly makes me a victim, makes you the abuser, and now, who are you going to back? You're going to back the abuser, or are you going to back the victim? It divides, it discredits, and then she pulls in the whole blame game. It's my husband who did this. He did this. He did it. He brought him in. Everybody forgets about all the good that's been done. One issue, you say, Brother Jeremy, this is a big issue. Okay, well, I'm not talking about this now. I'm talking about just human life. This is what happens. Preacher, this is what happens. Two people can get together. They can get married. Life can be going on. One issue happens, and instantly, bad, evil. Let me tell everybody. Let me tear them down. Let me discredit them. I'm going to forget all the things that were done and all the commitments that were made and how we got from that point to this point. And instantly, I'm just going to bowl up on, he's evil. And I'm going to come to your office and make sure you agree with me. I know you can't say anything, but I know human nature enough to know that's exactly what happens. She is a perfect picture of worldly love. You did this, you bad, evil man. So in a few words, she creates a consensus where Joseph doesn't belong. She builds pressure on her husband, where he really is going to have no choice but to remove him. And she creates this whole victimization lie. It's a lie. Remember, in this whole picture, none of this happened. The abuser is her. The innocent victim is him. And then she repeats it. When he comes home, verse 17, and she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came into me to mock me. And it came to, she repeats it. She repeats both lies. And in case you didn't miss it, in case you did miss it, Justin, there are two lies. The first lie is Joseph is the villain. The second lie is she has virtue. But you know what? There's the challenge, because nothing dies harder than the desire to think well of oneself. And when we tell lies, we're trying to deceive out there. But I'm going to tell you who usually gets deceived with the lie. It is so easy to deceive ourselves. Joseph gets blasted with shame, and she is cloaked in innocence. And everybody around, I don't know where the clock goes. I need to talk faster. This is personal opinion. Justin, when I step to the side, because I'm thinking, and it's also personal opinion, but I really believe this is the big challenge with the world and how they attack Israel. We love to attack the dominant one. We attack businesses because they're stronger. We attack authority. And right now, Israel's the dominant one, and the poor Palestinians are the victim. Nobody pays attention to the fact, they're starving them from electricity and water. Okay, well, they've been gone from there for a long time. Hamas has been in charge for a long time. You tell me why they're still dependent on another nation for water. Because they've taken all that donation money. You would think they'd build an electric plant. They're pretty close to the Mediterranean Sea, 100 miles of sea land. Why are they still dependent on another nation? We'd be pretty stupid to depend on Canada to give us water. Well, we kind of stopped that pipeline. But it's so easy for the world to attack the dominant one. And that's all she's playing here too. I'm the victim. He's the dominant aggressor. And we just want to feel so good about ourselves. We go protect the innocent. I'm going to tell you, at the cost of truth. We don't care to look into truth. We're motivated by emotion. And we don't want to know. Now, in a minute, we're going to take a look at Potiphar. You know what Potiphar's challenge was? He didn't care to look into the truth. Man, I don't know how you got. I got to come over here next time. So she tells some lies. She elicits her army. Verse 17. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us. And she plays the blame game. It's your fault. You did this. And I'm going to say, by the time it gets here, although this has probably just been a couple hours, I think she believes this. She's talked herself into the fact that it is his fault. Here's where it all starts. You did this. You brought him in here. It's your fault. All she cares about is tearing somebody down and living as the victim. And y'all know, as much as I think love is a preeminent thing, I think one of the most destructive things in our country is the victim mentality. And that's what she's playing right here, because you know what happens when you're a victim? It's somebody else's fault, and you will never change. You will never make adjustment. It's always the husband's fault. It's always dad's fault. It's always the friend's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. So why should I ever change a thing? It's always the teacher's fault. Or the principal's fault. He let the teacher stay. If we can just find someone else to blame, we don't have any responsibility. And that's what she's doing. Now, I'll go here. Did Potiphar, we got to hurry, jump to Potiphar. Did Potiphar believe his wife's story? I can't say yes or no. But I do want to look at a couple things. And the first thought is this. If Potiphar believed that he went in and tried to accost his wife, why did he not have him killed? because he certainly could have. But he doesn't have him killed. Instead, he has him placed into prison. Now, you can answer that, well, it's God's protecting hand, and I would agree with that. But I would also tell you God uses people. And in this case, God used Potiphar. So I'm going to tell you there's at least some doubt in Potiphar's mind whether this is true or not, or Joseph is dead. Now I'm going to give you two things to think about. Genesis chapter 39, verse 1. Remember this? And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard. Okay? Now turn over to chapter 40, verse 4. For me, it's on the same page. Joseph is in prison, and the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them. Whoa. The captain of the guard is Potiphar. And then in chapter 40, the captain of the guard says, I want you to take Joseph, and I want Joseph to be in charge of these two people from the palace. Well, if the captain of the guard in 39 is Potiphar, and if the captain of the guard is still Potiphar in chapter 40, Potiphar still has some respect for Joseph. At least some thought to the fact that for 11 years he benefited by Joseph's commitment and Joseph's integrity. I'll give you one other thought. In chapter 39, when you get to verse 19, and it came to pass when his master heard the words, his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant unto me, his wrath was kindled. Now I would not hang a whole lot on this verse if it was alone. But when you consider 39, when you consider the fact that there was no death sentence, that God didn't spare him from a death sentence, when you put these things together with the integrity, with the loyalty, with the care and concern that Joseph showed for 11 years, I would at least offer to you that perhaps Joseph's wrath was that he had to deal with something, because it does not say that his wrath was kindled at Joseph, which I think is a big leave out. It says that he was angry. And I would at least give you something to think about, that he might just be angry that he has to deal with an impossible problem. Because that's what his wife created for him, an impossible problem. This man who was in charge of all that he had, and you know what happened to it? It just grew and prospered and grew and prospered and grew and prospered. And you know how much he had to worry about any of it? He didn't have to worry about any of it at all. And you know how many times he caught him cheating or hiding or avoiding work? Oh, that would be never. And everything grew. I think God blessed everything. I think he blessed the other slaves. I think he blessed the interaction. I think he blessed, because when light is there, light affects things. Right. And now he has to deal with this. Now you are putting me in a place where what am I supposed to do? You've blasted this to all the servants. You've made me a laughingstock in front of everyone. And here I am. And if nothing else, she knew him. He knew her. Do you think this is the first time she flirted with anybody? She literally said, lie with me. That's not small. You have to go a little way before you're that confident. Here he is in this situation. He has to decide what he's going to do. And I'm going to tell you, what he should have done is sought out the truth. But what he tried to do is just massage the problem. The appearance and the servants and the wife and the whole thing, so Joseph get thrown in prison. And I'm going to make this correlation to somebody else I think did the exact same thing. Because his job and his responsibility was to seek the truth. Eric, give me John 19. And from thenceforth Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, saying, If thou let this man go, thou art not Caesar's friend. Now here's the problem. The outside pressure. The army had already been built. They went to the army and they threw it out there and they caused all the problems and they stirred it all up. And this is what Pilate has to deal with. So what did Pilate say? Give me chapter 18. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou king? Art thou a king? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am king. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into this world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth heareth my voice. Let me tell you, I'm truth, and if you're seeking truth, you know that. You know what I just said is the truth. if the truth matters. Pilate saith unto him, here's Pilate's answer, what is the truth? Pilate is at a point where he has to decide, is he going to seek truth, or is he going to just try to massage the problem away? Chapter 19. Then Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged him. Well, here's his answer. And the soldiers patted a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put on him a purple robe and said, Hail, King of the Jews! And they smote him with their hands. Pilate therefore went forth again and said unto them, Behold, I bring him forth to you, that ye may know that I find no fault in him. Then came Jesus forth, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate saith unto him, Behold the man, and we know how this ends. The pressure from the crowd says, Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate says, You crucify him. Now, I say, Brother Jeremy, I really think you're reading a whole lot into that Joseph story, that Joseph and her and Potiphar. And well, let me tell you, I'm not going to sit here and argue a whole lot. But if you're going to say Joseph and you're going to look at Joseph's life and see the correlation, see the type of price, it certainly fits. And the challenge for us is much like then, are we going to be people who care about the truth? Because the truth is often sacrificed for convenience. Amen. Or for personal gain. I'm gonna run out of time here, but I'm going to do this anyway. We Americans like to think that we're open-minded, that we're people who search for the truth. But I'm going to tell you, that's not when it comes to God. Romans chapter 1, verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Keep going. Because that which may be known of God is manifested in them. For God hath showed it unto them. Matt, you know what this says? Yeah, I forgot. I need to come back over here. This says God revealed himself. He's going to go on and make sure we don't miss this. But he's saying God reveals himself. There's something inside that knows. We know. God makes sure. We know that there is a God. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. They're clearly seen. Well, but when made manifest. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Now we can keep reading all this, but we know it ends up in verse 25, where they choose to believe a lie. And it says before that they make themselves fools. There are times that we exchange truth for a lie. Now we need to remember that when we lie, whether that's to attack someone else or to make us something that we're not, we're speaking Satan's native language. Amen. And it comes with destruction. Oof. Let me see. All right, here we go. I got 3 minutes. Let's run through this real quick. Chapter 39, verse 21. But the Lord was with Joseph. Now I want you to know through all of this, we do not get a picture of Joseph's feelings. I'm surprised. Joseph had to be destroyed. He had to be beaten. Here he is in prison. But we don't get his feelings, and I think that's because the writer wants us to concentrate on how he made it through, not on how he felt. We all know how he felt. We all have been in down places. We go up, we go down. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and here's how he made it through, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, and he was the doer of it. He took care of everything again. Because you know what? When you're a good man, you do good things, and when you do good things, it affects people with goodness. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it prosper. So, how did Joseph make this through? Well, the Lord was with him. He's not alone. Now, I'm going to tell you, this means Joseph had to depend on, turn to, lean on, look to. And preacher, I'm going to tell you, one of the greatest things I've ever heard you say is that we need to exercise the Thanksgiving muscle, because that makes us dependent on him. I love that. I can't let go of it. And you know what Joseph did? We can jump to the end of his life. You know how he made it to the end of his life? He depended on God. God's always going to be there. Are we going to depend on him, or are we going to try to work it out ourselves? When we do, we make ourselves the victim. But Joseph stayed dependent on a God who was always there. And then Joseph, remember, had his promises. You know, I think sometimes we struggle with this because we don't know his promises. We can't depend on what we don't know, but Joseph had his promises. Joseph had a dream, and he knew. You know what he told Potiphar? He told Potiphar. Potiphar knew that he was the God Yahweh. He had his promises, and God had a purpose. I've said this the last couple of weeks. Every chance I get, I fit it in there. I heard it or read it. I can't remember where, but it just stuck in my brain. God never wastes the pain of his people. And God has a purpose for what Joseph is about to do. We need to remember God is with us. We have his promises, and he has a purpose. And when we do, it'll take our trials and turn them into opportunities to affect eternity. Brother Doug, nice to see you. Will you close in a word of prayer this morning?